Hi everyone. This video is going to be a short introduction to our inquiry unit, and we're going to talk specifically about stasis theory. In this video, you can expect to learn what is inquiry, what is stasis theory, why use this process for research, and finally some hints and tips to make your research more enjoyable and more effective this unit. So let's get started. So what is inquiry? Inquiry, at its bottom line, is simply the process of researching. It involves asking questions, making discoveries, and testing your findings. Now, the important thing here is to realize that this is a process. This is not a one and done. You will need to return to your questions and return to your issues and topics again and again as you test and retest the information. The other part of inquiry is about confronting contradictions. So one of the things that you're going to be doing during this unit is looking at the different ways that the research you find might actually contradict the places where people disagree. So let's talk a little bit about stasis theory. Stasis theory comes from the Greek, and it means at its basic to stop. Stasis theory is really referring to a place where the argument or the discussion stops. It's a place of equilibrium, and it's also a place where the conversation can happen, because when the agreement stops, we can actually start to have an argument or a conversation about a topic. Stasis theory helps you get to the point in your research where you can begin to add to the conversation instead of simply repeating what's already been said and agreed upon. Stasis theory is a 4-question pre-writing process. So there are 4 main questions, and those are going to help you with the invention and the pre-writing you need to do your project. It was developed in ancient Greece by Aristotle and Hermogoras, so it's been around for a really long time. The thing about stasis theory is it encourages knowledge building, and it also allows for a systematic approach to questioning and research. So if you've ever had to do a research project and you just don't know where to begin, stasis theory helps give you a starting point and a really concise structure for asking questions and finding answers. There are 4 main questions in stasis theory. Questions about the facts, questions about the meaning or the nature of the issue, questions about the seriousness of the issue or topic, and questions involving proposals or plans of action. Now, under each of those categories, you can come up with tons of sub-questions, and your information in the course gives you some of those questions. So for instance, with the facts, you can ask, did something happen? What was it? What happened? How did it begin? What are the causes? Is there a problem with what happened? What changed to create that problem? And can the problem be changed? Can it be solved? So by asking those questions, you now have avenues to research, things to search for. So you have a place to start. So why use stasis and inquiry? Chances are you've never done a research project quite like this before. One of the reasons that we're going to be using inquiry and stasis theory this semester during this unit is because of the difference between high school and college level research. Now, in our textbook, they gave the analogy of a musical mashup to the difference between that and a musical remix. The goal with college level research is to create something new. So just like a remix is a reimagining or a brand new take on an original song or an original idea, college level research asks you to do a little more than just find the facts that have already been agreed upon. It wants you to add to the discussion. And this can be really tricky Chances are when you've done research in the past, you've lined up the facts that you find, you present the quotes, and then you turn the paper in. But for college level research and college level essays, your professors are going to expect you to be able to add to the discussion, add an argument, add a new perspective, add a new question, add a new way of looking at the topic. So how do we do this? Inquiry and Stasis is going to help with this, but there's a few tips that I'd like to go over as we think about progressing through this unit. The first tip is you have to listen to the conversations. I'm sure you've all had a situation where someone walked up to you and a friend talking and jumped into your conversation, and the other person maybe didn't know what was going on and they misread the topic, and suddenly you and your friend are looking at this person like, why are you talking about this? The same is true in research. If you haven't listened to the conversations before you insert yourself, chances are you could miss something that's already been said. So it's really important that you're listening before you speak. In this case, it means reading widely, making sure you have a really good sense of what has already been said. It also means you want to find multiple viewpoints. It's important that you're not just reading the viewpoints that you already agree with or that you already know. And finally, as you're reading, you want to ask the question, what's really the issue here? What is everyone concerned about? Tip number 2, and this one can be challenging, is to keep an open mind. Oftentimes, students start a research paper already knowing what they want to say. If you start your inquiry project this way, it's not going to work. You should not already know the argument you want to make or the points that you want to make. Instead, you need to enter into this whole process with an open mind. That means you need to keep your questions open-ended. Let me give you an example. If you ask the question, what are the effects of enforcing standard grammar and writing instruction on various populations, that gives you a lot of room to explore the issue. But if you ask, why does standard grammar discriminate against Black students? Then you've already made up your mind. You already know that you want to make an argument that discrimination is in fact happening, even before you've defined discrimination or figured out the causes of discrimination. Already you might miss some other effects that teaching standard grammar might have. So whenever possible, you want to keep your questions open-ended so that you're not directing your research towards finding the things that you already believe. And finally, tip 3 is to inquire intensely. This is very much related to tip number 2. The first thing is, don't worry about arguing for a position. At this point in the semester, you should not have an argument to make yet. You don't know enough about the topic in order to make an argument. You need to read more, ask more questions, learn everything that you can. So don't worry about figuring out what position you want to take just yet. Instead, you should be following the trail of information. As you read, see what questions come up for you, see what other questions you might want to ask. Push beyond what you already know. Don't find the 2 or 3 sources that already mimic or echo what you think. See, is somebody saying something different? Is there anything out there that contradicts this or opposes this? And finally, it's really important that as you're researching, you're making sure that you have different viewpoints and different views. You want to think about who are the various stakeholders, who's involved in this topic, who has something to lose, who has something to gain. Are you listening to all of those voices rather than just relying on your own beliefs or what you think you already know? The goal of inquiry and the goal of stasis is to figure out all the places that you're missing information, right? This is a time in the semester where you're going to have 5 whole weeks to do nothing but research. You can explore your topic, you can figure out what you do know and what you don't know, and you can figure out what questions you want to ask without having to worry about writing an essay quite yet. So hopefully that has cleared up some of the information. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me through email or through our class website. Thanks for listening.